the next 3 years, most African vice chancellors will be women. And we probably have more women than the rest of the world. So thank you. Today, I have the privilege of sharing in Gordon's dream. Gordon used a word I didn't agree with in his introduction. He said he was being disruptive, and he found a vice chancellor that was being very disruptive. In my world, disruption is negative. I like change. Change, I know that you young people refer to it as disruption, but I find it, for my age, it doesn't really work well. And I used to say when I was vice chancellor that all I needed were 5 young, ambitious scientists like Gordon in the sciences, and another 5 equally young and ambitious for the social science and humanities. And we'll change this university. Today, after 10 years, I think Gordon has clearly vindicated the decision we took. I remember him coming with the World Bank team to come and convince me to support the initiative. So we went to the council chamber and I did one of my shows for them. They were very happy. And then the following month or so, he came with the breakfast and asked what it is. Can you manage all of these? Time has shown that it could be done with support from people like Ojokura and others, Dorothy, and a few other people. We've seen the change. So today, I'm here to talk about overcoming the challenges of productive research in Africa. And there are 3 things I'd like to mention in this talk. The first thing I want to point out is that the need for us to do cutting-edge research is driven by the fact that there's a big problem in our regions. We have the biggest need for research and development to change things, and yet we do very little in terms of that. Our contribution to the global generation of knowledge leaves a lot to be desired. And then I point out that conducting research in Africa is extremely difficult, much more difficult than in other parts of the world, despite the things that we have done over the years. And my final point is that overcoming these challenges will require a new model. And what Gordon has done here, Gordon and his team have done, is a clear manifestation of how a new model can work. So I was talking a bit about the Africa's knowledge ecosystem, and then I'll talk about the challenges of leader research in Africa, and then focus on how to overcome, or what experience today we have in trying to overcome these challenges. And then I'll talk briefly about the WACCBIP model, and then conclude from there. So, discussing Africa's knowledge ecosystem, the first point I make is about the diversity, the rich diversity of cultures, languages, the ecosystem, and then the dynamic social landscapes. Africa is changing. The Africa we know today is very different from the Africa that became independent in the 60s. Very different from the Africa that was very much always in conflict and so on. It's changing. And as it changes, the way we engage with it as policymakers, as scientists, as whatever, has to change. And so that point needs to be made. We talk about the fact that despite having 18% of the world population, our generation of knowledge is much, much lower than the rest of the world, including in the other developed parts of our world. So only 3.5% thereabouts of global scientific knowledge comes from Africa. Africa accounts for only 0.3% of global research and development expenditure. 94 researchers per million inhabitants, which is not acceptable. And then only 0.5% of patent applications around the world. So this first chart here basically shows us the first point I was making about our contribution to the global generation of knowledge. Currently, what is important is that it is growing. It has seen some growth in the last decade, and growing quite steadily, but it is still way, way below what we need in order to make that impact. So, what do we have to do? This chart, mark here, I started working with it from 2012. In those years, the African contribution was a narrow strip, very narrow strip. I've seen it begin to bounce very, very slowly, very, very slowly. So if you compare the 2012 image there to what we have in 2016, you see some growth, some change, but it is growing rather too slowly. That's what people like Gordon and their colleagues and so on have to work on. Change that situation, change this map. It can be done within the next 10 years. And the point of making with Arua and other similar institutions that yes, change in Africa is possible. So in this Africa's knowledge ecosystem, what we do here in this chart is show which areas the growth that we are talking about is coming from. Clearly, in the environmental sciences, we've seen significant change. In public health, we've seen significant change, also occupational health. What is important is that the change is occurring well without money. About 80% of all expenditure in the region is going into health sciences. Of course, if you're putting all your money into health sciences, you can't expect your agriculture to do that well. So, you've got to think about these. Of course, going to a very narrow strip of disciplines in the health sciences. That's what we should be interested in. Of course, we also talk about the spending. The more we spend, the more likely it is that you're going to find the type of research that you need to make that change in your system. Africa spends very, very little in the bottom left corner. And so it's not surprising that the number of researchers per million inhabitants is also the lowest in the world. So what this chart shows is the number of African researchers per million inhabitants. What is important is the fact that with population growth, that number is declining in terms of share, declining. We grew up to 2017, and since 2017 has been declining, something that we need to also do something about. We show the number of researchers per million inhabitants in this way, also compared to the rest of the world. We are right at the bottom of that chart here. When it comes to female researchers, clearly we cannot be doing very well there when the rest of the world has challenges and we are spending far less than the rest of the world. So we are here together with East Asia and Pacific, and then the South and West Asia, right at the bottom of the pile here. So we've seen that we are not doing well when it comes to spending on research and development, and also the impact of that. And even what we are doing is quite narrowly skewed. And most of whatever publications we are having are coming from a very small group of countries. For Sub-Saharan, it's all coming from South Africa. And then we've seen some impact coming also from North Africa. Yet our continent faces a number of complex challenges. The most important being challenges we face with the poverty, inequality, insecurity, the area of food, malnutrition, hunger, and then our strained health systems. It's important for us to accept, and I do make this point whenever I had a chance to talk to African policymakers, that we all aspire to attaining the African Agenda 2063. We also aspire to attaining the SDGs, whether in the areas of health, education, malnutrition, whatever. We have these aspirations. But we are not going to attain any of them, but in health, but in education, without basically changing the way we apply knowledge. It's not going to happen. We are not going to all of a sudden make maternal mortality rates improve without strong application of science. It's not going to happen. And you can't change that without research and development. And so you have no choice but to think about how you can. So there's enough evidence from the Africa Sustainable Development reports that there is modest progress in poverty. Unemployment remains a major problem. Social protection systems in Africa are fragmented and inadequate. Here in Ghana, we have what we call the livelihood empowerment against poverty. We have this. We have school feeding. We have several social protection programs, but these are poorly coordinated. These are extremely poorly coordinated. And so we do not get the impact of what research and development can do. The prevalence of undernourishment has increased or been rising. 60% of Africa's population experience moderate or severe food insecurity. Today, as a result of changes in carbon emissions, we've seen how many households are being affected. Conflict in the region is rising again after going down considerably in the early 2000s. Today, we've seen conflict rising again, largely in the Horn of Africa and also parts of West Africa. So we know, and we made that point, that the research is important if we are going to make things happen. If we are going to reduce poverty and inequality significantly, good research needs to be undertaken. We need to be, that good research is going to lead to significant improvements in food production. That good research is going to lead to improvements in engineering. That good research is going to lead to significant improvements in health delivery and so on. But it's not happening for a number of reasons. Insufficient funding and investment is one that everybody knows about. Weak infrastructure and capacity. And that's what WACCBIP is trying to deal with. WACCBIP is trying to have modern laboratories and well-trained research personnel. That's what it's about. So I'm very happy with what WACCBIP has done. I like the stories that were told. WACCBIP shows very clearly that if we work together, we can make a big difference. WACCBIP shows in many different ways how young people driven by proper ambition can make that big difference. And so I thank WACCBIP for inviting me. Incidentally, today I'm only 2 days away from retirement. So everything I'm saying, you just have to pray that people like Gordon will not forget that there's a dream. And that dream requires young people to be ambitious. That dream requires a vice chancellor to be committed. That dream requires a whole university to be bold and say, we want to make a big difference. Thank you.